Before we begin with this episode, I would like to suggest that this entire episode will be divided into three parts: part 1, part 2, and part 3 with Computational Mama. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe podcast channel and follow my Facebook page Mix Masala with TG. If you have any queries or stories that you would want to share, you can always email me or DM me in my Instagram page or Facebook page. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Mix Masala with TG. I'm Tenzin Gopal, and we have a lovely guest, Ambika from Bangalore, right?
No, Udaipur.
And also from Udaipur.
Yes.
Okay, nice. And yeah, she's also known as AKA Computational Mama, which is a really cool name. I think that kind of got my attention. Like, that's a real name because I have that is Funk Blue. So yes, namaste, very good morning from Baroda, and yeah, let's get into it. Can you give us some introduction about yourself?
Cool. Do you want the long one or the short one?
I think long one is good.
Okay, so I was in design college in NIFT in Delhi, and I was designing museums after that for almost 10 years. And but I always had some kind of interest in trying something with computers, and my father would tell me, "Acha, chal ye piche, go and put the wires in, and like help me fix up the computer." So I always had like a nerdy outlook towards technology and excited about it. But of course, with design, I never pursued it.
Something?
Sorry?
Was it like?
Sorry,
was it something that you wanted to do when you were really young, or was it something when you?
When I was super little, when the computer was basically like my mom is a designer. So it was a shared asset in the house. It was not common for homes to have computers. It was bought on loan because she needed it for her office work. So when she wasn't working on it, we could use it for a little while like that. It was, so we it had that game Prince of Persia and Dave 2D and those like
Road Rash.
Road Rash. Oh my God, yeah. And then my friends would come over. Basically, they would take over the computer. So, but it was good fun. But it gave me a very early access to a computer and what can be done on it. So anyway, so then I got into design, and then 10 saal, 10 years, I just did a lot of museum project management, design, art direction, films, art direction, um, all things museum. Like I became I became a go-to person in that sense. And then 2017, I was expecting my son Yugen. He's going to be 5 on Monday, and he was giving me a lot of trouble in the 3rd trimester before he was born even. So I had to be on bed rest, and then I started looking at coding train Daniel Schiffman, his videos. That's how I started my journey, and that's also how the name kind of came up, because before that obviously I was not a mother or anything. And then I just started posting stuff on Instagram. I didn't tell anybody, and in those days Instagram still gave you some organic kind of friendships. And that's how I became friends with Koparzi and Praveen Impolite, and a couple of other people like Time Blur, Natasha and Mike. And it was really exciting. And then Koparzi invited me for Algorave. This was pre-COVID. So this was like going on the side, and I was continuing my work and all that. And it was very much fun. Like, PCD happened, and then I went with my son. So it was really nice, like to kind of be in a space where I could be accepted, and so could my offspring, because I couldn't leave him anywhere. And it's sometimes difficult to access these spaces when you have a small child. So they were super cool, and they helped me managing him when I was doing something, or if I had to help in a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of fun. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And then really computational mama story started, and Ambika Joshi just like died a very quick and sudden death because all museum work stopped. And all the projects that we had going, everything just everyone just pulled out. So I was like penniless basically, and I started. Some young person from a design college, they approached me and said, "Didi, can you please teach me coding?" So I said, "Okay," and then I got like maybe 4 or 5 other women whom I knew were interested in coding. Anisha, Soumya Kharbanda, Nanditi, my work partner, Subhani was also there in it. And then we started this format called Recreating with P5JS, which is a riff of Zach Lieberman's Recreating with Code, where he encourages you to learn coding through recreating computational works of the past. So, like really good artists like Vera Molnar and Sol Levitt and all. So I was like, okay, but where is the Indian representation in this? And obviously there wasn't, because we probably didn't have access to computers as artists in those days. So you can tell me if you want me to stop, or like, because I can really go on.
No,
So
because I myself, like, it was around, I think, the year 2000. The Be Fantastic. So
yeah,
they had a fellowship,
yeah,
and apparently, like now, with a lot of the podcasts that I do, I keep finding myself talking about this fellowship because it somehow got me back to my geek wala side. I mean, I had always been very much attracted to building things, taking down whatever machine it is. You will have remote control cars when we were young, and I'll take them apart and then try to see how they work and things like that. I'd always been very much into electronics, but then after joining fine arts, I somehow got lost, you know,
yeah,
because sculpture in itself was very new for me. And, when you come to an environment where everybody is into proper
yeah,
visual art practice, you also kind of get focused into that. So for 7 years, I was just into that. And then the COVID hit, and suddenly I find myself with limitations. There's limitations of materials. I cannot go out to buy. I cannot. Again, I think it was a similar scenario all over the world where people can't earn, and so I had to find ways to, like, make do with making art or creating something. And because that's the only possible thing you could have. Everybody was in that position, like, what to do, ab kya kar sakta hai. So you had a huge surge of people doing a lot of social media things, because internet tha और phone tha लोगों के पास, so they were doing that. And for us it was like, what can we do? And this opportunity, I mean, I understand it was a very unfortunate event that happened, but I think for a lot of the creative people it was like an opportunity also to actually be in one space for a long period and try to figure out what to do now. And that's how I started getting into coding. I'm just a beginner now, and I'm also following the page that you had just mentioned before, Coding Train. Yeah, and I think it was this fellowship from Be Fantastic that actually opened up a totally new space for me, where I can use my sound, because I'm a musician also. So it's so nice to now think about how I can fuse the music aspect and generative art together and have that performative element where I am playing it. I'm still starting. I'm just like getting into it. Started working with Touch Designer, also working with P5J.
no, no, no,
One of the reasons why I got connected to you, and even our common friend Hassan, he mentioned you a lot. The last time I was in Goa, I had met him. We planned to do a podcast together, but
Oh,
then
nice.
with due to time limitations, we were unable to. But we did have a very good conversation about what he does, what he wants to do, how technology can also be a tool. And I've heard so much about you also. Also, when I heard that you were actually not into this before too, and the journey since then has been, like, I think for you very fascinating to start it. And what were the challenges that you were facing at that time? And as a person from design background, how do you utilize this as a tool for your expression and so on,
Yeah.
please?
I think it's very interesting this question because with museums, no, it's like always like 5 year, 10 year timelines to finish the work. And many times I would be like intensely very hyper focused, like how it is in art school also, like
Mm-hmm.
into the work, like everything about the museum I'm managing, everything. But
So,
it's
were you
taking
like
longer
archiving?
than, sorry?
Was it like archiving?
No, it was more like first I started in the art direction part. So like at the production level, I was managing, say like the senior designer's vision to be translated back, and there was a lot of craft intervention in that. So there was a big project in Punjab called Virasate Khalsa. So I was part of the first phase of building that. So there it was like jo bhi kaam diya, you just whatever work they gave you, you did. Like if one day it meant making a Excel sheet, you did it. If one day it meant sitting with the artist, you did it. If third day it meant doing Photoshop, you did it. So it was just like this kind of, and with museum work it's very addictive because it's like every day you're learning something new, you're interacting with people from different fields. Someday you're with the PWD
Mhm.
officer, someday you're with an artist, someday with a poet. So it's so exciting, all the time you're just like meeting people, and it's like it's very enriching, but it takes very long. It takes you like 5 years, 10 years to build. Virasti Khalsa itself as a project has taken almost 20 years to start off. So imagine that kind of a timeline. So there's like no gratification immediately, And by the time things are ready, you're so sick of it, you don't even want to see it. So there have been times when I've done projects, and the day the ribbon was cut, I left. I never saw the project after that because I was so exhausted by that journey. But with coding, it was so different because, like, do one thing here and then immediately you have a result, and do one thing here. So that instant gratification was something I really needed, both in terms of my project work, but also like I was really stuck because I was a new mom who couldn't go to site. And my life, which was like, I was in the office space for 16 hours. Even if I wasn't in the space, I was project managing from home on a phone or a computer.
And you were there in Udaipur at that
No,
period?
I've been all over Delhi, Bangalore.
Okay.
Then I delivered in Udaipur. Then I was in Jaipur for another museum project. So in all of it, I was like, okay, but where is my identity? Like, because museum mein, I'm just one cog, and at home I'm just a mom now, and everything is directed to the focus is all on the child, And the coding was really amazing because like in between sending out an email to office and in between the diaper change, I could just make one small sketch and put it up. And for me, that was something I'd never been able to do as a creator because long, bada project, bada idea, bada BOQ bana rahe, like we were at that level, we were making bill of quantities, contracts, we were like doing all of that stuff and all those projects were in crores. So I was like dealing with that scale. And here I just made something in a P5J's editor and it gave me
So how did
something
it click?
amazing.
When did it
I don't
click
know.
to
It's just
you?
like it just happened when I was expecting, and I was trying all this stuff on coding train because I had time. I was on bed rest. I couldn't work, so it just gave me like focus to just be able to do all of that. Maybe that's the last time I slept. I think in 2017. So yeah, so even now much of my practice like it's very common to have a practice where you're sitting whole day thinking about your work, being able to kind of take one idea and take it to a level, take a year even. But I don't have that liberty anymore. I have to be really quick on my feet and think of projects in a very iterative way. So code really suits that nature of being able to tweak it, make it better, put it out there, and like not feel not feel apologetic. With a sculpture or an installation, once it's up, you have to, like, it has to be perfect, right? There's no room for
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
The mistakes, but the visitor cannot. There's no room for the visitor to point things out, or the person experience. With technology, I feel like there's a little bit more room to do that, where you can try something very simple and still people are amazed and excited, and
And
they are
probably
more.
because
Sorry, yeah.
Probably because it's entirely a new space,
Very, very
this
likely.
the scope of internet itself, and
Yeah.
technology. I mean, we have been having technology since quite some time. I mean, I still remember when I was a kid, we had that Garaso mobile, Nokia, and internet was just beginning there, and BSNL, you had to have that landline phone, and then only you can get internet connection, so I used to try and figure out, like, how I can download stuff and things like that, and I was already using YouTube at that time, and it was there, but I think maybe only certain amount of people had access to it, in terms of the hardware, and also in terms of, like, knowing what it does, what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
For me, I was very fortunate through my mom. I got to, have this access. But now the technology is, like, truly booming so much, so that we are having 5G in some time, and I think they have already started doing some experiments in
Yeah.
tryouts in some places, and everyone has a mobile, and everybody knows कि अब कुछ भी करना है, YouTube में जा सकता है, Google में जा
Exactly.
सकता है, and this entire new space, I think I was also not aware. We are all using it, but then, like, at the same time, we are not aware of what is possible there also. After this fellowship program, I think it just, wow, like, इसमें तो बहुत कुछ हो सकता है, we have, like, the basic laptop, internet is there, so it's possible. And the one point that you had mentioned about, how you can do some coding here, and then you have something, right, on the side, this instant result coming out, I think that also plays a big part in this role.
Yeah.
So could you, like, tell us more about how, when you started out, were you thinking of actually making something, or was it just experimenting, having fun with the tool? And
I think it was very much
Mostly-
just exploring and experimenting and learning and failing. I think I've crashed my system so many times with just very one line of code. So, and that's what, even in the workshops, I always add it as one line, that you unless you start crashing, you're not, like, going back to the level to learn. So, like, it's because you learn from a mistake, and if it's just a small mistake that's just going to restart your computer, I think it's worth it. So, and I was always trying this kind of stuff. I burnt a laptop because I was trying to make it dual boot, like with Linux. And my more, like, expert kind of technological friend, he was like, yeah, put the boot, and he didn't know what kind of random laptop I had, and it burnt. The motherboard went, like, black.
Oh, my God.
So, but I didn't regret it. I was like, okay, this makes me understand that maybe I need a computer where I need some kind of Linux or Apple where I can use the terminal. And my needs were already kind of shifting before Yugen was born. So, keeping that in mind, it was just me, like, trying to learn about my computer, like, as a collaborator, as a friend. And one thing that always, like, you even, like, I've been trying processing since 2010, and I failed so badly, but I just met my husband. That's all that happened in that workshop. It was a processing workshop.
Okay.
We didn't learn anything. We just met each other and we got we got married. So, but what really struck me after learning it properly was that, because we are already very visual and we have a very strong imagination as designers or artists, and code works in a little bit of a different methodology. So there's that little bit of a hump, and if you cross that, you love code. But if you're not able to cross that, and you're not able to imagine how it's collaborating with you, you leave it. So like then you'll think that, oh, what is this? Just 6 circles, right? I can just do this in Illustrator. Why do I need code for this? But what it's setting you up to do later is that you're learning how to use a loop, you're learning how to use random, things that will not happen automatically on Illustrator. Things that if I needed to say, even this curtain in your background, it has this like random noise kind of thing happening. If I had to do this by hand, you know very well how much time it would take in software, like you're like pushing one pixel here, and that pixel pushing really, like, I find that to be such a wasteful exercise, just like, I know, I mean, a lot of people do it, but I just find that, यार, मैं ऐप तो फिर भी तुम्हारा यूज कर पा रही हूँ ना, तो तुम्हारा बटन एक पिक्सल इधर है उधर है, तो like, it shouldn't matter. But anyway, so for me it was just that exploration and like seeing where I could take it. But now it's at a place where I feel I stopped using Illustrator altogether, because I'm able to like express myself a little bit more visually in code, and find that the generative idea is something we, even for our studio, Jaipur, we like to push quite a lot, like whether it's through processing of P5JS or any other software, that tool that we use, to be able to it's like that, just that right amount of randomness that you would allow, say, if you were an art director to an artist. You give the vision, but eventually the artist will do it in their own format, and you have to give them that leeway. You have to like trust them in that way. So if you can trust a person to do it, I feel like computer is also a collaborator, and you can trust them. And if you give the wrong instruction, a human will also crash and computer will also crash. It's just a different language. That's it. So So that's what I always tell people, that you have to think of it as a collaborator. Even a younger collaborator with whom you really have to be, very patient, and like you have to help them understand things. And especially with AI, I find that to be much truer, where it's like a kid, it's really like a kid. It's still learning, it's still figuring things out, it's making mistakes. And of course there's a lot of like unethical stuff happening now with all this image stuff and all, but uh, the essence of machine learning and artificial intelligence is still very much based on this idea of learning, like how they say reinforced learning. Now reinforced learning is, it's like teaching a child number, like 1 2 3 4 A B C D whatever. So you're reinforcing those ideas. So those notions, like those that language, that grammar is coming from basic learning of humans. So if you can make that parallel, then you should be able to make the parallel that it is also a being in some way, maybe not sentient, but still a being. So that's where I'm at now, to be able to.
And when you started out, you had also mentioned, how when you started sharing it, on social media pages, Instagram at that time had organic sort of growth happening. How was the reaction then? What kind of people did you come across, and what sort of interactions did you collaborate
it was
at that
the
time?
best. It was the best because it was all before the stupid NFT nonsense. I'm sorry if you're into it, but I find it to be. I just find it to be really upsetting as a culture.
We'll talk a little bit about NFT after some time.
It's more of a, for me, that culture is a bit intolerable almost. But in general, like, it was more of a, most of the people in that creative coding community were coming from different backgrounds. Somebody's an engineer, somebody's designer, somebody whatever, somebody's self-taught. So people like Hassan and Koparzi, Abhinay, Praveen, we were just like conversing. They were like, hey, what's this? Like, what can I do better here? Can you help me here? And then when we all met at PCD, I don't know if Hassan was there then, but he definitely knew Abhinay. So we started doing these Sunday meetups where, these guys, they would talk about the new stuff that they're learning, or maybe somebody did a learning session. And many times, I would listen to it on the phone because, like, my kid was with me and COVID was so bad for like parents. But it was like this little escape. But it was really interesting because, it was a very encouraging environment. And even now, like, I can really bank on them if I'm stuck. I don't have to think twice about asking any of them, okay, I'm stuck here, can you help me out? And perhaps not anymore in code, even in real life, I may be able to, like, if I say I'm stuck in physically also, somebody might come and help me. So that community was very focused on sharing. It brought the best parts of creative communities, and it brought the best parts of technology communities. Open sourceness from technology, sharing from technology, and the creative aspects from the creative communities. So sometimes it does happen that people from creative backgrounds are a bit closed about how what their techniques are, or how they are achieving this, because naturally it's their livelihood. So for example, Zach Lieberman, he never shares his code.
Okay.
He'll never share his code. He teaches. He says, "I will teach you, but I will not share my code specifically." And I feel that's very valid. It's like his art. Na? It's like Anish Kapoor having a special black. How is that different?
Yeah.
So that openness was really nice, to be able to find those resources, like Zach's entire recreating from with the past whole series is on GitHub, so you can just like learn, read, and or whether it's Abhinay putting out stuff about Hydra or estuary and things like that. It's and that each set of communities has a mix of people, which is really, like, diversity always like helps in the growth of that stuff. So it's really nice. It was amazing. I was feeling that kind of encouragement, which I felt like maybe I had never perhaps got as a creator, especially coming from a design background. And it like really helped me to push myself and like see where I fit into all of it and feel confident about what I'm doing.
I think that, because I follow you in Instagram and Facebook, much of the things that you do, I know from just this social media. And I think even your son is really enjoying like the kind of setups that you have now, I've seen like, wow. You also do electronic.
Yeah. I spent a lot of
Right.
time last year doing that, because I think, or was it, when was the second wave? 21?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
21.
So like somewhere mid 21, I started in the summer, and I'm still looking at it because I feel like it's such an interesting world, and like if I can find a way to like bridge P5 with electronics, it would be so beautiful. But of course, it's not easy. It's very challenging with a child also. Like soldering iron, you can't do that work when he's around, or like I can't leave little LEDs or buttons around, because he's just gonna back them or get hurt. So I kind of had to like tone down that stuff. But for me, it was very interesting to see what's possible, how easy it is now. Like there's so much like resource to do it. And I'm really enjoying. A lot of people are now putting, after COVID, things are open, so now they're putting up their own things, like with Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and whatever. And that's always been
Which one do you use?
Right now, I've been between, like I've always had one Raspberry Pi with me since the very beginning. Somebody has always gifted me one.
Okay.
I never bought one. And I've also like the last year I started using the RP2040, which is a microcontroller by the Raspberry Pi people, which is a Python-based microcontroller. That has been very interesting because it allows you to do like human interface devices, like like have little buttons or key buttons and things. So it's like you are able to use like keep simple things like P5 just key pressed, but you don't need a keyboard anymore. It's like a little button somewhere else. So just to have that simple channel through has been interesting. And Raspberry Pi is always like, I love them, but I don't know how to use them. Like I tried all sorts of crazy things on them, built servers on them, logging into SSH. Now I think I can do it in my sleep. I never thought I would be able to, but I can. And so it's been very interesting. So now I really want to see, maybe like to try some of these little those AI animations, maybe on little screens, to see what that would look like. I don't know, just trying. But
yeah, I've been also just because one thing leads to another, and then you start seeing like, oh my god, this is also possible, this is also a possibility. And for me, because because I play, right, and I have a very small MIDI keyboard, and I was like, this synth, they are very expensive. I mean, this MIDI information that I have to connect to my laptop, and then there are special requirements, and you don't actually have like Indian made synth. These are all foreign countries and very damn expensive. And so I started looking into like how it's actually made. How do you get a synth made? And that's how I came across Arduino and Raspberry Pi. And then I was just again surfing in the web, got to know that root of all this is, of course, you have the microprocessors, controllers, but then again you need coding. You need to have coding. So I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is maybe spend few years just learning about coding and touch design, because it does not require to be online all the time.
Yes, yeah.
PJ5, I have to have
Yeah, you have to have
internet going
internet,
on,
yeah.
and I think touch designer also uses Python language. In some ways, I think it's little bit more simple than Java and C++, like all these other languages.
Yeah.
At least for me, like I know, okay, I need 5-6 codes.
Yeah.
I'll search them in internet, and then I'll use them in my parameters.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to now have a image, and with different, because the image is all based on RGB. So I try to have all these the red and the green and the blue parameters in like different nodes or frequencies, and try and experiment. I'm just like,
yeah. Do you know sound codes? Akash, he's built two synths already, which he sells at a very nominal cost.
Okay.
But maybe not so much production, because obviously he's doing it all on his own. But I think you should connect with him also.
What's his name? Akash?
He's I don't know his last name, but he goes by sound codes. He stayed in my house, and I don't know his last name. He and his partner stayed in my house for 3 days, but I don't know.
Thank you for listening, and here we end the first session. Stay tuned for the second and the third session with computational learning. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You can find Mix Masala with Teaching in Facebook and in Spotify and all other